is so divine to be here with you again. I am feeling so much energy inside of me. Most of it is excitement. I know that's a choice. So many times, and I actually posted a note that has the differences of emotions, like two sides. It looks like Venn diagrams, and it will look at two emotions and what they share similarly. And when you look at the emotion of excitement and anxiety are two sides of the same coin. It's a choice which one you decide to feel into in that moment. And so there are a lot of things right now that my mind is telling me you should be nervous about this. One of them is I am using a really fancy mic that is not mine, and I'm trusting that I'm being heard clearly because I'm speaking into the mic, and also trusting that I'm not being heard too loud. Uh, that's just one. The other one is I'm looking at a camera instead of it's setups. I'm in a different setup right now, and it feels really divine. So, yes, I'm very excited, not nervous, to be here with you again. And I thank you for being in this space with me. Last week, I talked about what it felt like for me having emotional authority and being inside of my wave. Last week, I was in the reflective part of my week or wave, the reflective part of my wave. I had 2 days to ground that energy in through baseline, and now I'm in the high, more vibrant energy part of the week or wave. I don't know why I keep saying week. And I've really looked forward to being in the high part of my wave again. Understanding that I have 5 days where my mood gets to be a little lower, where I don't have to be so on, uh, is comforting and annoying when you want things to move faster. And that's one of the things that I'm discovering as it relates to my emotional wave and faith. And I really want to thank Dr. Karen Curry Parker for giving the faith language a place to live inside of the emotional solar plexus. So many times in traditional human design and quantum human design, we say it's the emotional solar plexus. We talk about how it goes in waves and how you have to really be with yourself to understand the true extent of how do you make decisions inside of a life that literally has roller coaster up and down waves. It was said, I'm paraphrasing, that those high parts of the wave are super creative. They are parts of the wave where I get to choose excitement. It's really easy for me to choose excitement as the other side of that coin in a high week. During the reflective low part of my wave, that choice feels less accessible. It feels farther away. And when Dr. Parker talks about the reflective part being a place where faith lives, I experienced the truth of that this past week. It was really easy to be excited about all of the seeds that I created during the high part of my wave. Was really easy to stay in flow, stay in momentum, keep going. Everything's working out. As an alchemist, the world is opening up for me. I have so many things to respond to. This is amazing. And even though I knew it was coming, that reflective part, it hit hard. During the reflective part, which I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail, that's literally what the last live stream was. Intriguing. I have a camera that is auto following me and it's just adjusted to doing other things, but we're going to rock with it. Ah. It became really hard for me to stay in touch with my vision over this past week. Because all of the seeds that felt really exciting that I planted, all of a sudden were making me nervous. Because I guess going with this metaphor, in the high part of the wave, it's easy to plant a bunch of seeds. And you're so busy being in response and living and loving creatively and all of these different things that you don't think. Like there's barely time to think about, oh, is this gonna grow? What's this gonna turn into? And it feels like during the reflective part of the wave, the universe gives you all the time to think about, you know, how you planted the seed, right? Did you nurture it enough? Did you put enough water? Like, are you giving it enough sunlight? Why don't I see it breaking through the soil yet? I know that I did all the right things, and I just want to see a little bit of growth just to let me know that I'm on the right path. And in the reflective part of the wave, if you let that desire overcome you, the desire to see the proof that your seeds that you planted are actually budding. They're going through germination. They're doing everything you need them to do under that soil. The reflective part of the wave is where that nurturing really happens. And I had a lot of discussions this past week that nurtured my soul. And actually, I left off last week's live stream with the questions that I had actually planned to explore on that one, but then I ended up talking about the reflective part of the wave the whole time. Those questions were, what does it mean to accept that I am fire without making myself smaller? Where have I mistaken over-explaining for connection? Just before this live stream, I refreshed myself of those questions, and it just made me smile. 'Cause these were questions that I asked in the reflective part of the wave. I was seeing patterns, I was seeing trends that allowed me to see the truth that in a lot of ways I'm synonymous with fire. And what I mean by that is fire is seen as destructive to some, disruptive. It's probably a better way. Uh, it's seen as disruptive. It's seen as this thing that, well, destroys homes, destroys the environment, right? We hear about the forest fires in California. When I remember last year, I think it was, we were affected by the fires in Canada. The smoke was so much so that we could experience it here down in Maryland. And that's one side of fire. That's the side that people associate fear with. There's also a different perspective of fire. Like when you're outside on a cold winter day and you have a little fire pit going and you're able to sit with the fire and observe it, to feel its warmth, to be close enough to it that you experience the benefits of what it has to offer you, and yet there's safety there, right? And so I was in a place where I was starting to see, because my whole life, what I'm not saying right now, is that my whole life people have described me as the positive version of fire. They take note of the disruptive pieces too, because I have a lot of pattern recognition energy in my energy. And when I see patterns that are no longer serving people, it's time to initiate out of those. I haven't always felt comfortable being the fire because I was so afraid that I might burn someone that I didn't even let them get close enough to feel the warmth sometimes, the true warmth. And so now, as I revisit this question after the soul nurturing conversations that I had over the past 7 days, what does it mean to accept that I'm fire without making myself smaller? The most honest way that I can answer that question in this moment of reflection, what does it mean to accept I'm fire without making myself smaller? It means that I accept that I can grow and I can expand. It means that, especially with this fire pit emoji, in a fire pit, depending on how big it is, because most times we think fire pit, we think those small backyard fire pits, I think, or at least I do. And I went to one temple bonfire where they essentially dug out a hole in the ground really deep and wide, and there were like branches of trees being thrown into this fire because it was so big enough to hold that. Accepting that I'm fire without making myself smaller means, in this season, understanding the container I'm being held by. Emotionally, that container is a person right now. And I can tell that I am losing words because that's not ready for me to give words to just yet. So I'm going to stick with where I was going. Understanding the container I'm being held by. I have spent a lot of my life essentially feeling, knowing, sensing, intuiting into I'm a fire that requires a deep well to hold me, like the temple well. And what I've been finding are containers that keep me small. They don't allow me to grow into the full expansive warmth that fire could in that instance. It's easily contained. I've had containers that have kept me here so that at any moment, if I get too hot for them, right? Because it's subjective. If I get too hot, if I become too disruptive, if there's too many nervous what ifs, someone can just take the lid from the fire pit and just place it on my container and put it out. So what does it mean to accept that I'm fire without making myself smaller? Means accepting that not every container was designed to hold my fire. That feels good. That feels good to come to a realization of. And this second question of where have I mistaken over explaining for connection? I feel like this takes the fire into a synonymous look at emotion because Dre, my daughter's father, I've known him for 11 years now. And we reflect warmly on some of our first interactions from time to time. And one of our first interactions, we met at Chipotle. We opened a store together. They had just built it. They were getting the staff in, about to open it, like grand door opening. So we had to learn all the ins and outs of, the different roles because we could be playing any role. And at at I laugh because for so long I didn't notice him until one day I did. And I decided that I was going to grab his number off of the employee contact sheet list. And I was like, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to see what's happening over here because I'm intrigued. I'm curious. And in those early days of us getting to know each other, one of the first times I invited him over, I gave him what I called the Spark Notes version of my life up until that point, which included, at that point, because I was 18 when I met him. 18. Yeah. I was still integrating the fact that I had been removed from my mom's care due to child abuse and neglect. I was still integrating the fact that through that process, my dad was found and we were reunified. And for a brief moment in time, I lived with him in that reunification. I was navigating a lot of personal integrity issues. And when we spoke, I just felt like my most genuine remembrance of that is I really like this person. I really like hanging out with this person. And whenever we hang out, there doesn't seem to be any sort of extra that creates chaos for us. Things seem smooth here. So maybe if I just warn him that my life is chaos and he still decides to stay, then maybe we can have something. And so when I look at this question, where have I mistaken over explaining for connection? In that Spark Notes version of my life, I was simply going through what had happened to me or happened in my life. Because happened to me is victim consciousness, and I don't want to be there. But I had just shared to him what was happening in my life up until that point. I shared emotions that some of those things brought up in me at those times. But in that Spark Notes version, everything was in the past. It was like preparing him. Because in the current, we didn't have any chaos. So I just wanted to warn him, hey, I know you think I'm cool. I know you think I'm chill. I know you think I'm vibes. And I am all of that. And I come with this little pattern of disruption that I think you should know about. And that was my way of trying to force control or the illusion of control, because I believed if I told him these things and he stayed, then we'd be okay. I was trying to make us okay. I was trying to make the connection happen. And granted, I felt like I was running out of time during that time because I met him in January. We officially got together in March, end of March. And I left for basic training for the Air Force in July. So in a way, I did feel like there was a crunch for time, because even if he did decide to stay and we did the whole long distance relationship thing with me in the Air Force, just because we talked, somehow I thought that meant connection. That doesn't take into any consideration of how he feels about the information that I told him, how, it doesn't, it's a very, I can see now looking back, because hindsight is always 2020. It was a very superficial way of me building connection. And now that I'm saying that it was a superficial way of building connection, that's what I was, because it's imprinting, modeling, and socialization. Yes. So during the socialization phase of my life, which was 14 to 21, that was how I was socialized, to build connection with people who I thought could help me. In addition to being removed from my mom's care when I was 15 due to child abuse and neglect, the whole year leading up to that removal, I was in and out of the hospital, like psychiatric hospital. I've been hospitalized 6 times. One in my adult life when I was in the Air Force, and the others were when I was in my teenage years. And